Hello, guys. Welcome back.
Seth.
Hey,
Hey.
Hi, Seth.
Chris.
Oh, man. Trying to get stuff done is being hard. But it's like the hair, like I said yesterday, you would take like probably like the whole today to do it's like most of the guides, but still would be pretty far away. Um, Yesterday, for example, like the stuff I did with the beard, right, the mustache and everything, I tried my best to show you guys what tools I'm using and everything. But you are, as an artist, I mean, like you understand that it takes a long time to just refine everything. So I try to make sure that you guys get like how to start those things, and then there's this whole process of sculpting things, and it's like styling the guides and doing all that stuff. So that's something that it's definitely like impossible to do it during the time that we have with the classes. But every time I do something that you guys are not watching me doing, I try to do like a recap. It's like just to show you exactly what I'm doing. So I'm gonna share my screen here just to show you what I have for today. So this I did like probably like an hour and a half of work. Still has a lot of intersections and weirdness in there. The render is also showing those imperfections and everything. Obviously, it's just like a little bit more than an hour spent. But so it looks like this right now. I mean, like it looks pretty Chanel, right? I mean, like it's just a base to start sculpting. So it's just like getting some of the waviness in there. Like it's very plain. There's nothing like specific. It's like some kind of specific stuff. If you look at the hair itself, like the guides, they look pretty much straight, right? So let me just break down this for you guys here. So I'm gonna remove those noises and I bring them back for you to see. So basically, like at this point, you see like I have some curves going all the way that way, and the hair is not following it, right? And the reason why is because I don't have enough guides. So there's no way for Maya to calculate or XGen to calculate the interpolation. It's like between things if you don't have enough guides. So for example, there is an area here that's kind of like it's causing this bald spot. There is also a problem with sometimes like the things just like cross if you don't have enough splines, and sometimes it's almost impossible to get like this split in here to look correct, right? So let's look at this stuff here. So for example, like the first is a split here. Let me just gonna remove something that I have assigned to it so I can actually do it like another one to show you guys what I have. So this guide in here. So there is a thing that's called like a region map. So if I bring it down, he's gonna correct a few things in there, but you see like a lot of those hairs pop right in front of his head, right? And if I dial in, the hair starts cleaning up. But obviously, you're gonna have to make sure that you have enough splines on this side of the head for it to interpolate. What I'm doing here basically is painting a color map that's actually assigning like right in the middle in here is actually telling XGen to actually split. So everything that's on the in one color of the area is gonna split to that side. Everything that's in the other one split to that side. Obviously, right here, you see what's happening right there. So basically, those ones are in good spots in here, but those ones around here are fighting, right? So this one is kind of like trying to pull all the way from that side, and my mask is actually going straight like that, right? So I would have to kind of like try to conform to it if I wanted to get like a perfect result, kind of like what I have in here, So that's the kind of stuff we have to be careful with. And then here, like I said, I mean, like I don't have enough interpolation to actually create like fill this volume here, It's like it's just like pretty empty in there. Meanwhile, in other areas, it's kind of like filled because I have enough interpolation right there. So those ones are actually capturing. Imagine that each chunk here of the scalp is kind of like a little mask that you're creating, right? So XGen tried the best it can, it's like to just interpolate whatever is around those guides. But then if there is nothing else around it, it tried to find, for example, if you have one right here and the other guide is right here, it's tried to find like the midterm, and then it kind of gets confused, sometimes it goes completely insane. So sometimes when you start adding guides, you're going to add a few of them and you're going to look at the XGen is going to look completely crazy. But as soon as you start adding more and more guides, you start getting enough interpolation, So the first thing you're going to have to do, you're going to have to actually make sure that we have a mask. It's unfortunate we cannot paint the mask of, here in Maya, right? Because it's like it has UDIMs. And another thing that's very unfortunate is that the XGen core allows you to, for example, like move the guides. So for example, I could get this one here and move it to that side. But with interactive, you cannot do it. With the core, you can. So basically, like, yeah, I would just like select this curve and then just move around here, and then it would be over the map, and then we are good to go, right? But in this case here, I'm more careful placing those things correctly, kind of like away from there, or I can just like try to paint a mask that actually conforms to that. So I'm gonna just remove this mask all the way. I'm gonna break. Yes.
Is core and interactive two separate animals, or could you take it into core and fix what you need to fix and come back?
That's a good question. I mean, like some of my students, they started things in core, and then they migrated everything to Exchange Interactive to finish it up. I don't know exactly the process to do that, but I know it's possible. I know it's possible to do from one and then export and start in the other one. But they're basically like two animals, yeah. Like this is like basically like this is the system right here for the core, and this is all interactive from here. They're very different tools, you know. But yeah, I would say like if you take a look at the manual, we can try to find online, you know, like some of the most common questions in there. And I think this is one of them. You can actually export things. So what I did after that, I mean, like you see, like I removed the mask. Now it's a little bit more messed up, right? The other things I did here. So let's look at just the guides themselves. So we're going to hide the hair. So that's basically what I have at this point. Let me just hide a bunch of things here. I'm going to make sure that everything is more interactive. So it's very simple stuff. So the hair, the way that I try to do most of the time is to actually have like the top hair. So basically like the top hair here, I have to add some more in the backing here. It always goes over the whole thing, right? So those ones are kind of like the most external ones. And then you're going to get some of those ones, like, let's just select them to show you. Let's go right here to main hair, and then let's go guides, and then let's edit it. Because remember, you have to be under the guide to edit, right? So you see like this one here, and then this one right there. So those and this one right here, they are kind of like in a different spot, right? They're a little bit down from that specific line right there at the top. And then I have some other ones. I start to add some more fillers right here. Before I added those little short ones in here, the whole thing was interpolating, like going crazy, and those ones would get super long right here. But as soon as you start adding enough of them, you get like you know, more control. So let me just eliminate here the guides to show you how this was assigned to the hair. So I selected those faces basically. I started like this, right? Selected those faces right there. You see like it's a little messy, right? Those edges. Later on, I can just do some cleanup, and if I need to, you just like either with a mask like we did before, right? Like a painting ZBrush, a mask just to conform to that. Or you can do the cheap alternative, which is basically like shrinking them, right? Shrink the hair with a you know, with scale brush in there, in the width brush. So you can actually shrink them just around those little edges in here to clean them up. So you can do that as well, you know, with a sculpt pass. But since the hair is so long, I don't think I'm gonna need this. Only if it's like with short hair, I would have to do a little bit of a cleanup in there. So basically, like I started with this. I added 160, I believe it was like 160,000 polys, hairs. And so I started with 160,000. And but at this point here, you're not seeing 160. And the reason is this. So if you go to the main hair in here, if you go to the base, you see I'm using like the multiplier at 0.8. So if I go to 1 right here, that's basically 160 right here, 160,000. But sometimes if you're trying to make things more interactive, if you have too many modifiers like clump and noise, clump adds a lot of, you know, it's a memory hit in there. So I normally, if I'm just sculpting some stuff like quickly, I try to use like 0.02 or 0.03, something like that. So it's gonna show me less hair, right? So it's lighter like that. So after I did this, I added our guides just like I did yesterday, right? I added those long ones. I started with the front ones, basically like those ones around here, just to get the length. And then I went all the way to the back, some of the back ones. And then I started filling up the other ones, because that way, if you do the back and the front ones, you get the interpolation. So you end up like getting some free ones that are similar length, not perfectly, but at least, you know, similar position, you know. It's like, so I'm gonna do a few of them here so I can see the process. So I'm gonna just hide the hair itself like that. So same thing I did yesterday. I'm just gonna, you know, it's like mask them and just freeze. But then let's say you're gonna create some more. Make sure you click your guide and then click edit. And then let me just shrink this a little bit like that. So I'm gonna create one, let's say around here, there's a gap. I have like an object in there. I think I'm gonna hide this object, otherwise it's gonna be bothering me. This is the background. So let's go here, then click guide again, make sure it's clicked. And then let's say like this is a gap right here. So I'm gonna click create one right here. So it interpolates, right? Already add some length in there. And I'm gonna do like in a similar position around here. So this one got a little bit longer. So let's get this one frozen first. And then that one, I can actually shrink it. Let's do it like that. With our scale, like not scale, what's the name of that? Length tool, right? So I'm gonna shrink it, and then I can just like style it a little bit, just get out of the way. And then later, of course, everything here is gonna be tweaked, but I'm just like adding some of them. Slowly, I'm gonna start like filling up and getting more and more dense with this. Remember some of the examples we saw yesterday, right? Like for long hair, people use a ton of guides. So this is like nothing right here. It's very it's expecting too much to create like great hair by just using a few guides like this. It doesn't quite work like that, right? We have to actually sculpt it with the hair. So I'm gonna just select that one. Let's go to this one that we just created. I believe was, which one is that? This one? Right here, right? This one here. And then let's just get this one. I can actually play with it and maybe like wrap around a little bit, kind of like go around this area. Kind of like going inwards right here. It's very responsible, you know, it's like a responsive. The brush, when you use the comb brush, is very responsive. You can actually just like very easy to like get the perfect shape you want. And I use that like just the edge of my brush to just like create like curves and stuff. If it's not working like right here, you see like it's having a hard time. Actually, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it's doing something like this, just double check that, you know, if you double click this one, just make sure that the tool settings, oh, the tool settings are not showing. Great. Let me see if I can just double click here if it shows up separate. Interesting. That's a problem. Yeah, it's like Maya stuff,
Pull it
right?
out.
Yeah, right now I can't, but let me just tweak this like workspace. I have this one disabled because I don't like the accidents, you know. So I'm just gonna do this and then let's try to reload it and see what happens. Yeah, it's kind of like coming up, reset. Oh man, yeah, it's always a pain in the butt. Let's see if the other ones are always doing that. All of them are doing this. This one is working. So let's keep this tab here. Let's say, let's just move this one back to here and see if I can just trick Maya to do something here. So this one is showing. So the brush symmetry and everything is good. So let's just undock this thing. I don't like that. And then let's try to switch back to this one right here. Now it showed up. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Maya. So if it's doing something funny like that, like it's not very responsive right there, you can just go to your brush fall off and then make sure you have like a screen here. Because since we are doing it one by one, it doesn't matter if you go across the mesh, you know. That way you can actually really, you know, it's like pick it and do whatever you need. So, you know, slowly filling those gaps in here. That's basically what I have to do for the entire thing. I need some more like at the top right here. So I'm going to create one. Let's go around here. Let's click one, maybe around there. So that one is interpolating. I'm going to leave it the way it is. Just going to freeze it. Next one is going to be around here. This one I can actually pull to the side. So let's do a little bit more towards this side right here. And then it's going to be a pain in the butt just to add all those guides, you know, it's like, but that's part of the process. I mean, like the more complex the groom is, the more you're going to need like to do a lot of this, you know, it's like, it's going to be quite a lot of it. And then you can clump those guys. I mean, I can create this one here, for example, and then to make sure that's actually clumping and creating like a specific kind of strand, I can actually just create another one really close to it like that. And then I can pull this one, the tips of them pretty close together, you know, so kind of like go kind of like this and get together in there. And then we have a little bit of, you know, it's like almost like a little clump. So that's going to force the hair from different places, from the top and from here, to clump together at the end. So like this is the kind of stuff I'm going to have to do for very specific design options. You know, it's like, for example, like right here, I have this huge gap, so it's not filling up this area here. So, and also here, right, there's a big gap. So all this stuff here are gonna have to start doing that. You know, it's like create one close enough to do that. So it's easier to do than just talk about. So if I do, for example, if I wanted to clump this one here with another guy, I can just like click this one, and then it's penetrating right now. So I'm gonna get it out of the scalp like that. And then let's say I want to get this much closer to this guy right here. So something like that. And the root, try to make a, you know, it's like not too close to the scalp. I mean, like if you do something that's too like this, too close to the silhouette, it's going to look like kind of greasy, right? Like it's like too straight around there. So I always like bring it up a little bit like that, just to give a little style in there. And then if this is too long, just use your width, not the width, the length brush, just like shrink it. I'm gonna shrink a little bit like that. You can keep it slightly longer anyway, but, and then just go again.
Chris,
Yes.
quick question. So when you're doing those guides, you always make them like kinda straight, even if you are like doing someone with really curly hair or something, or just start making dreadlocks out from them, or
Yeah,
like
that's a good question. I mean, like it's so flexible, the whole system, that it really it's up to you. You know, it's like at this point here, I could potentially, for example, like start adding like some waviness to this hair in here, right? At this point, I could do that. So I could have like a perfect kind of design in there. Another option would be like to add to the in guide here a modifier, for example, noise, right? So the noise in here, I would do like this is noise 42. So I would do like a more magnitude, less frequency overall. So I could add this kind of like waviness right here as well. Another option would be to get, like, let me just get rid of this one. Another option would be to use a clump. So with the clump, for example, like if I'm showing the hair right here, the way it looks right now, right? It looks like this. So the clump in itself, when I switch it in here, I have some of that waviness baked into it. Basically, like if you go to the clump stuff we saw yesterday, I have my noise in here dialed in. So the noise is right there. I'm actually using an amount that's kind of like it goes way beyond the, you know, it's like this area here. So let's see, like what's the value I'm using? 8. So it normally goes to 1 right here, right? So with 1, I only get a little bit of noise like that. But you can crank this number to whatever you need. If you do something crazy, it's going to look weird, right? But if you do something like 20, a little bit less weird, you see I'm getting a lot of this very squarish kind of curves. It's because I don't have enough subdivisions in the curves in each one of the hairs. So I'm using like around, like, let's do like 10 instead of 8, something like that, you know? So basically, like, I'm using the clump with some modifiers in here. The modifier, you have a lot of options in here, right? There is this copy here that I'm using, for example. Without the copy, it looks like this. With the copy, actually forces those clumps to look more together like this, right? So you get some interesting stuff going on. I don't want to do like too, you know, too much like, you know, control. So I keep kind of halfway, like 50 here. But then look, so this is kind of like the starting point for the waviness in here. So it's just a combination of things, right? Just I could potentially just do like I did before, the first option, you know, that was just like tweak my curves themselves. But you can do so much by, you know, just using modifiers. But at some point, I mean, I can have like something that I'm going to be designing much more carefully, which with some of them. I'm probably gonna at some point just like ignore the guides completely and just select some strands, just like I did with Jessica's hair yesterday, right? And selected a bunch and then kind of like sculpt to a perfect shape the way I want. But yeah, so there's so many options, man. But check this out. Right now, just with this modifier, I get this kind of waviness in here, but it's not. It's still like very CG in a way because like everything looks so controlled. But as soon as you add some noise, so it kind of like breaks up that and looks a little bit more natural now, you know. And then on top of this noise here, I'm adding another noise with a similar technique that I showed you guys the other day using a mask. So I'm plugging the noise from like the noise map, right? And I'm using those parameters in here. So 0, 1, 0, 35, 49, 2 for frequency ratio, and then frequency at 150. And I'm using the Perlin noise, and I'm tweaking this area here, which is the color balance, to something like this, 5 and minus 3.8. So when I turn it on, you're going to see this is creating just the flyaways. So you're going to see it at the edge right here. So if I turn it off like that, like that. Just a few of them, because I'm really cranking this one. So that means like if you could visualize this map here, it would be basically like almost completely black, just with a very few tiny dots of white. So that's why I'm kind of like using the offsetting here to make sure it's just a few of them are affected, right? But you see like the curvature of each one of them is actually kind of squarish like that. Now, one thing I noticed is that when I rendered my latest render, even though it was looking like this in the viewport, Arnold renders subdivided, and I never seen that before. In the past, I would render and it would look completely square. So I don't know if there's something that was added to it, or if it's just like some setting I changed by accident. I'm not sure, but it's rendering kind of smooth, you know. Now, if it's not rendering smooth, you can always like basically like rebuild those curves, right? So the thing about rebuilding curves is that like, let me just like turn off the second noise here, maybe turn off the clump as well. Actually, let's skip the clump. So the thing about rebuilding curves, let's take a look at here. So under the base is where you're going to rebuild it, is that if you rebuild them, make sure you have a very low density right here. For example, I have 0.3, you can even go lower, 0.2. Make sure you don't have a lot of them, because if you try to rebuild to a higher number and you have a ton of hair, it takes forever to calculate, you know. But this way here, we should be able to do it. So let's say I have 80 CV counts for each one of those hairs right now, right? But as you can tell, for the longer hair, I'm probably gonna need more than this. If I look at around here, for example, you're gonna start seeing like those squarish lines right there, right? But if I do like, instead of 80, let's try like 120. I add a little bit in there, maybe like 200. Let's try again. So yeah, it's starting to get a little bit more smooth. And in general, when you look at the hair, there's a big difference between like 200 like this. And then if I do, let's just hide the guide so you can see it. So basically like this one is at 200 for long hair. But then this one here, let's switch to 64. And you're gonna notice the jump right here. There you go. See, like it kind of like shrank. So you need enough CVs for the hair to be able to actually behave the way you expect, you know. So it's a tricky one, because if you have a lot of CVs and at the same time you have a ton of hair, that can be very heavy for your scene, you know. But I'm using for now like 80 just to get like in the ballpark, you know. And then for final renders, I'm probably going to switch to something around 100 and something, probably not quite 200. But yeah, and then once you add all the other, you know, curves, I mean, like now I have my both noises here, right, and the clump on and everything. So if I just turn on the whole hair now by clicking this guy and just going to the base and saying like, okay, show me like 0.8%, which should be like 20% less than the 160,000 hairs that I initially put in there, right? So it should be like 130 or something. So now you see, like with all the hair, now it looks more filled, right? So it's kind of like it's a nicer look overall. But I mean, like in terms of control, I still have a lot to do here. There's a lot of those guys, they are penetrating. A lot of those going to be solved by the little trick with the root stuff that we're going to be painting. But a lot of them we're going to have to, you know, it's like maybe like tweak them by hand at some point, you know. And the way I would do it, it would be something like select the hair. So if you have like you add a modifier to the hair here, let's do like where is it? Sculpt. If I do like a modifier in here, it's going to be similar to what I did with Jessica. For example, if this one at the end of the day, after I add all the guides, because it's more likely the guide's going to fix a lot of stuff. But if at the end of the day you still have some crap like this, you can select the hair. So for example, like you're going to select it like this, right? The hair itself, not the guides anymore. And then let's look at the other side to make sure that we are not selecting anything by accident. Let's get rid of all that stuff. Make sure you're just selecting the one we like. So just that one. And then, you know, it's like it's that artistic kind of option that we have, right? That I showed you guys yesterday. Basically, you're going to select your comb brush. And then you're going to go to your properties of the comb brush. And you're going to say invert frozen effect. And then you can go to
show again how the selection thing works. Like, how do you get it to get just that area and not?
Oh, sure, yeah. So this one here is the freeze tool. this guy here. The difference here that I did is actually I was working on the guide before, this one, right? I had it selected. I switched to the main hair. So now if I was here, for example, and I have the edit, if I selected anything, you would select just the guides. But if I want to select the hair itself, then I switch to this guy here, add a sculpt layer. So when they add a sculpt layer, I can actually click this edit in here, right? And then with edit on, then you can just go select the freeze tool. And then basically, let me just change the size here. And then you're going to go, for example, you start like that, right? So you're just going to select, just like, you know, click this guy, select it by just pressing the left mouse click. And then in areas that are selected by accident, you press Control to reverse it. And then you just like deselect those guys. And that's about it. So,
Okay.
Sorry, to change the size of the brush, what was that key command?
oh, it's the same for everything in Maya. Is like you press B, and then you click and drag like the middle mouse button.
Okay.
Yeah, keep holding B and then just drag like that. And then to make things faster here for me, what I did, I actually turned off my noise, and I'm even going to turn off my clumping here. So let's see. Well, the clump I'm going to probably need it, but we are just doing like a little testing here. So I'm going to click this guy again. I have the edit in there. So let's say if I want to bring these guys together now, let me just make sure that this one is by screen. Okay, good. So just going to bring those guys together like this. You can do this manually, you know. It's like I said before, you can do a lot with guides, but sometimes it's not worth the trouble to fight too much. You know, it's like if you're not getting what you want, you can really use brute force like this. You know, it's like at the very end, obviously, if you're kind of like after you added all the guides, because like I said, sometimes you add the guides, and if you have enough of them in the right spots, they end up like capturing a lot of those flyaways that are kind of like lost in the process. You know. Oh, it's just auto saving. Just a second. This scene is getting a little heavy now with all the hair. You know, it went from like 60 megs to like 230 megs. So basically, like what I would do is this. You know, it's like just kind of like compress them together and make kind of like a clump like this, and then get it out of that space in there, like away from the face. Even around here, I can actually bring them up and treat like curves. You know, it's like, but the fact that you actually brushing the whole hair interactively, this is the kind of stuff that a great advantage in relation to the core, you know, the core XGen. You can really manipulate stuff like the hair itself, you know, instead of like relying just on curves and little formulas here and there. So this is basically like you can really force your way like that. And even like if I want to do a little hook the opposite direction here, look at the amount of control I have. So I get just a tip right there. You can just get this to actually curve that way. You know, it's like create this crazy little curl in there, right? So this stuff like becomes very artistic. It's just a matter of like how much time you want to spend on it, you know. So now that I have that, let's add the rest of the modifiers, and let's see if the clump's going to destroy it maybe, because yeah, it kind of destroyed it a little bit. So I would have to actually go and sculpt with that on, with the clump on, just to make sure that it's actually behaving, because this overrides everything that's coming from the clump, right? So if the clump is actually deforming that, I would have to do this like manually. But you know, it's like you can definitely you know, tweak it again and do the work. So just remember to turn it on. I've forgotten there that's a problem. And then once you have this away from his face, and like let's say like you have like the perfect shape, you're just doing a quick job here, like a dirty job. Then you can, you know, turn on your noise in there, so you get a little bit more variation like that, right? So that now, if I turn off this modifier that we just did, you went from there to here, right? So it's kind of like away from the face. So there's so many possibilities, you know. It's like if everything goes wrong, you can sculpt the entire hair using this technique here, just like get little chunk by little chunk, just like a barber would do it, right? Like select a little chunk of hair and then goes and like, you know, cuts it and brush it in a different way, puts a little in a corner in there, you know. So you can do this like, so it's pretty much like you can do any hairstyle you can think of, even if you have to do it manually, you know. Sometimes relying on automatic tools doesn't give you exactly what you need. But like I said, since this is like for stills, you can do pretty much like a perfect hair job in here, you know. It's like if you are patient enough and, you know, to do that kind of stuff. So just keep that in mind. because sometimes you get into that, it's like desperation mode. It's like, oh, I added all those curves and things are just not working. And then just remember that this is a possibility. With Jessica, you saw how messy this whole area was, and I selected and I did everything by hand. I was like selecting a little chunk and put it to that way, and it works. But let's take a look at this the region mask that I mentioned before. That's gonna help us. Yes.
And a quick question. I mean, like regarding now the tool that you're using to isolate certain clumps, how would it be if I want to, I don't know, apply different colors to every clump, like having a character with different?
No, that's an interesting thing. It's like because XGen expects you to use like Maya masks for the most part. So it has an option in here that actually is supposed to actually treat, for example, like if you bring a region mask, like something painted in ZBrush to here, if it was just a single UDIM, it would probably show you each one of the strands with a different color. So it's easy for you to see, right? But because I'm relying on UDIMs for my guy here, I cannot see that. That's the problem. Like I said, I mean, like if you guys want to do like different UV sets and have one that's just for XGen, and then switch to the other UV set just for render time, you can try that. But at this point here, for example, if I go to my guide in here and I try to apply a region mask, you have this option that says preview colors on splines, right? So it should work, but in my case here, it doesn't work because I mean, like it's just like it's a UDIM, it's like it has multiple maps. So XGen doesn't know exactly what to do with it. So yeah, there's like some advantages and disadvantages there with having multiple UDIMs,
Okay.
But let's take a look at this. No problem. So let's take a look at this. I'm gonna just hide it. The main hair, I'm gonna show the guides themselves, something like this.
Sorry, can you tell me how you just did that? Because I can't seem to find the hair, like switch from guides to hair.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the hair is the main description, right? You started by creating the main description. When you selected the faces and then you apply hair to the faces, you create something like this. I named it main hair, right?
Yeah.
So inside of the main hair, the first modifier I added was a guide, right? So I added the guide modifier. And then when I had the guide on, this was not present. So I went to this one here and I said like create guides or something like that. And then you create this other option right here. So this one actually started to show like the guides like that, right? So if I want to show just the guides, imagine like each one of those green boxes here, this one refers to the guide itself, and this one refers to the main hair. So if I click this one, I hide the main hair. If I click this one, I hide just the guides.
Okay, it's actually on mine. Sorry to hold you up, but yeah,
No problem.
I just actually didn't see any hairs, even with the main hair.
Yeah.
Like there's just these big. It almost seems like guides, but maybe those are hairs.
Oh, did you tweak like the? I mean, like the
CV?
No, actually, like in the main shape, you should see like this width scale here. Make sure this is not huge. I mean, like if you start with something
probably
like,
was because they look like guides instead of hairs.
Yeah, if you have something
You know
like
what I'm
huge
saying?
like that.
Yeah, I think that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So
where do you see that tweak that you just said? Because I don't see that.
Which one?
If I click on main, like hair, and then down below, you pointed towards
the
I don't
shape.
see attributes editor.
Press Control A. You should bring it up.
Yeah, it's not coming up, but I don't want to hold you up because I really need to learn Maya. So there's things like that I don't know. Like I just got the 30-day trial, so.
Yeah, Control A is to bring up the attribute editor, but as you can tell, it's like the tab stuff, like the tool settings. I just had that problem, so it might be something a little funky with your Maya in there. No.
Oh, I see the Control A. I'm also on a Mac, but no, I just wasn't. I wasn't hitting Control. I was hitting something. Like Option A.
So it should be the width scale, basically.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No problem. Let's with this one here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hide the main hair. I'm going to keep just the guides visible here. It's going to be a little tricky because I have like, ideally, I would paint like, I would have those guides far away from the center line. Let me just do this. Actually, I'm going to redo some of those guides just to make sure that things are looking correct. So you see, like, this is my main center line right here, right? So you see those guides on the left side, they're pretty good position, right? But those ones here, see, those ones are going over, and that can create like a bunch of problems for us right here. So I think I'm going to delete those guys. Actually, can I delete them? I don't think I can. What I can do, well, I'm going to do something, guys. I'm going to be crazy talk. The problem with Maya and XGen is that it's very easy to crash, right? When you're doing things that, you know, especially using this brush here. This is like the devil's brush. It's called a density brush. So I'm going to try to use the devil's brush and see what happens, but I'm going to save my scene before I do it. So I'm going to do devil's brush. I call the devil's plant cilantro. I cannot stand cilantro. My wife loves it. The devil's plant. All right. So I'm going to save this one first. Let's see. There you go. Yeah, I'm going to try to use that just to show you what this, if this was not buggy as hell, the way it was supposed to work, you know, it should be fun actually if it worked. But I'm just going to select those two guys here. They're the only ones that are going over. And I'm going to try to actually paint them out. I'm going to go to this guy here. So this is the density brush. If it doesn't work, I'm going to have to close Maya and reopen it. And then if it doesn't work, I'm going to just like select those guys, either shrink them. If I shrink, it's going to create a lot of trouble, I think, with XGen. So I can just like brush them to the other side and then add new ones on this side here, you know. But let's try to do this and hope that Maya is going to be helpful, or XGen is going to be helpful. So if I needed to remove them, I would just click like set and then value to 0. And I would just like click right around here. Let me just make sure that I have guide selected and edit, right? And let's try to do this. See, it didn't work. Amazing. Let's see if I have anything else here. Let's see the fall off. Let's try. It's just surface. Okay, so that's not gonna work. The flood I don't want to use at all. So yeah, this was supposed to work. Let's try with some other setting here. Let's try instead of set. Let's go like decrease. Actually, set to 0. Yeah, it's not going to work. I wish. Let's try it with decrease and let's put the 100% here. Let's see if that works. No, it doesn't. I'm afraid if I do too much work here, all of a sudden things going to start crashing, right? Yeah, that sucks. Anyway, so what I'm going to do with it, actually, before I do anything else, since I saved the file, I'm afraid that this kind of these little tweaks I just did in there that didn't look like it did much, right? But like I said, sometimes it's a trap. Is XGen setting you up, you know, it's like for like an ulcer in your stomach later on. So XGen is tricky like that. Sometimes you're sculpting stuff, it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden, like you reopen your scene like after many saves, and then all of a sudden everything that we thought wasn't happening, you know, so it was actually happening behind the curtain. But let's just do this manually here. So let's select those guys. Let's see, main here. Where is it? Guides, in guide, and then sculpt. So I'm gonna select this guy here and this guy. No, actually, this one is fine. Those two guys in here. Make sure it's the only one selected. So like looks good. So I'm gonna do like a crazy come over here. You can do like a big brush like this, and you can just like, oh, not like this. Come on. Let's do a double click and then invert selection. I'm going to turn it off. You just need those two guys. So I'm going to bring them all the way here. Easy peasy. With a big brush, it's easy to just like do that very fast. And yeah, that's the thing, you know, it's like the XGen core has as well. It's really cool is that actually you can actually move. You get the root of each one of those guys. So you can actually move them around, you know. So you don't need to do this crazy comb over in here if you're using that. But I mean, like, this is all my fault. I mean, like all the mistakes I'm making here, you guys are learning with them, hopefully. So the main mistake is that I created those guys over the center line, right? And if I'm trying to plan something to use like a perfect like split right in the middle, you have to make sure that they are in the correct position, right? Obviously, if you're gonna do like a split in the middle, it looks kind of unnatural if you do right in the middle, like I'm doing right here. So it's good if you can actually create some kind of zigzag pattern in there, as long as the zigzag is actually, not interfering with them too much. Like it's kind of going, it's like, let's say like the zigzag here goes over those guys, comes around here, and then around here, right? So it would be better if you could like paint this in Maya, because you would be able to see everything. But because of the UDIMs that I'm using, I'm not, it's kind of like blind for me. So I might have to switch like to a single UV at some point, just for this part of the process, and then switch back. It's like have something that's actually baked to one single UDIM in ZBrush, something I can just like color project back to the multi UDIMs when I need. It's like for the final pass. But just for the initial tweaks, I would maybe do something like that. So you're gonna freeze those guys, and I'm gonna add another one right here. Gonna bring them to the side. So I'm gonna do it, making sure that, so this is the center line. I'm gonna just go over right here. I'm gonna click one guide right there. Uh-oh, what happened? Okay, it calculated going the opposite direction, because that one is actually pretty close to the other side. So I'm just gonna move this around here. It's a little messy. If I did it correctly from the get-go, you guys would not be seeing this, so this was my mistake. So hopefully you guys are not gonna be this silly.
I found a link for culling some of the primitives.
Uh-huh.
I put it in the chat. I don't know if it's the right thing, but
for primitives for the
there's a tool that you can move.
Oh, for the interactive?
I think so.
Huh, to move the guides?
Yeah, it's like editing the points, and you get rid of it by editing the points.
Oh, so you would select just one
in the chat. I don't know if it's the right one.
So you select all the points in the curve, and then you just press delete and get rid of the whole thing. That would be interesting. It'd be interesting to see. I'm gonna just do a few more, and let's take a look at that. So let's do this one here. Let's try around here. This guy. Still gonna try to interpolate with those guys. Is the closest he has. So I'm gonna have to do that again. Again, like this. Hopefully it's not gonna be something you're gonna be doing a lot. It's like easy enough to just like move to the other side and do a little tweak here and there. So let's do something like that. And let's see, in relation to this, going to bring more towards the background here. It should be good enough. And then more towards like this area right here, I definitely going to have to give like some love to make sure that this, like, it has a nice, you know, kind of like turning here. So basically like from this point on, I would say like from this guy right here, I would pull this one that direction. Let's see where it's going to be pulling. Yeah, he went that direction. That's good because it was closer to that one. So he interpolated. So if I do this, I'm going to try just to pull this a little bit more towards the side right here to create a little kind of like that. Let's see. I'm going to pull down right here, curve it, a little tap, and a little bit higher. This little peak in there, I like having the hair a little bit higher in there. So something like that. So now we have like all of them going over that little center line, right? So it's kind of easier for me to show you how the mask works. So let's switch to Maya, actually to a ZBrush. Let's just do one more around, I think here. Just make sure that this one is following the other direction. It's probably going to try to do, yeah, opposite, because the closest a line that defines the closest guide, it tries to interpolate with that one. So that's why it does that. But I'm going to bring this one back to the side as well. So here, let's bring it around here. And then maybe a little bit forward like that. And then let's bring this down, down, down. And then you get the tip of it and just pull it. Otherwise, it gets always scraggly, kind of like this. Look, if you have like something like this, it gets weird like that, right? So you just like pull a little bit of the hair up like that and pull from the tip until it stretches. So you can get that. Another way is to actually use this one here. This brush actually goes like from, you know, crusty to smooth. What's the name of the brush again? This is the smooth brush, yeah, the smooth tool. So this one again, like I can create this one, make sure that you know, it's like it's starting to clump with another one. So I can do something like this closer to those little guys in here if I wanted to create some kind of pattern in there. So let's see how this looks like with the hair now. So let's see, this is the main hair. Let's do a hair right here. Oh, that's the, that's my, okay, there you go. So now it's actually pulling them a little bit more. It's like a little bit better. So this area here is covered now. It's not having that hole that it had before. But the center, you see, like it's all messed up because it's trying to interpolate. It doesn't have enough in there. So when you get around here, see, those guys are coming from back there. So the mask definitely going to help us a little bit. And then with more hairs added, until we get like most of those covered, you know, it's like that should solve the problem for the most part as well. Another way to do this that I thought today would be much easier to do was to use that technique that we were looking at yesterday from Jesus, right? The problem is when I was trying to use the technique, it worked for the first like 3 or 4 strands that I tried, and it worked fine. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it broke. So like I noticed that if it's gonna be like a complex hair like this, I don't think it's something that we can totally trust, you know. So I think it works fine for the mustache and other areas, but you know, for the hair, I really tried, you know. It's like, and after having like a few of them, I think like what might happen is that I had already, like, for example, like those modifiers assigned to it, they were just like off. And then I was actually putting new splines interactively after I connected all those nodes that we connected yesterday. I was actually doing that manually, kind of like adding interactively more stuff. And the system was actually adapting itself, right? Until it broke. So another way I think it could work is that if you did pretty much like use all the, put in place like all the guides first. So if you have like all the guides for the entire hair first, and then you connect that system, so actually the clumps follow each one of the guides, I think it's more guaranteed that's not going to break, you know. But if you're trying to put like new splines on the go after things are connected, I think he has this huge potential to break, you know, because everything in next gen is like, it has this huge potential to break at any time. So you never know how you can trust it. Oh, look at that. That's pretty cool to see, actually. Let's turn it off again. I turned off my guides themselves. And now this one has the modifiers, just the noise of the clump. Look at that. There's some craziness in there. This one is actually cool to see. So this is the area that's actually getting messed up the most. Look at that. I'm going to turn off my noise. That's a good diagnostic kind of tool right there. Look, I can actually see that this area here is going to need more splines because it's definitely like getting completely messed up. That's kind of interesting to see like that, huh? Let's try to do that. Let's see if it solves the problem. Oh, shoot. Let's do select the guide here. Let's do edit. Let's freeze this guy right here. And I'm going to try to create another guide right there and see what happens if it actually captures that. Let's see exactly where it's coming from. It's right this little area right here, right? So let's try one right there. Oh, it didn't do much. Let's try from here, maybe. Oh, actually, this one is not taking into account the guides themselves. The guides are off. So what's happening with that guy? That's a weird thing, huh? Is it a clump? Oh, no. Oh, man, I'm tripping here. It's the sculpt layer that we added. Remember that sculpt layer we added just to do that custom trick in there? So I thought that I was hopeful that everything was working fine, you know. But yeah, so in that case, let me just switch back to my guiding here. And let's incorporate that little mask. False alarm. Illusion. All right, so let's incorporate the mask in here just to show you how to create that split. I'm gonna do it like a very simple mask first. And the only thing you have to do is to pay attention to, let's just duplicate this guy. And then I'm gonna colorize it. It has to be pure colors, okay? So it has to be like pure red, green, pure yellow. Otherwise it doesn't work. So I'm gonna have to do like gonna go to my RGB 100, and I have to select like a pure red, for example, 25500, Then I do a fill object, and now I get something like this, right? So that's my first color. And now what I'm gonna do, I actually gonna do a second color. So I'm gonna mask this half of it, something like that. Actually, symmetry off. It's gonna do like half of it. To make sure that's right in the middle, let me just turn this one on, the wireframe. Let's do like right in the middle. Ah, oh, shoot. Right, the middle, right around here. Should be close enough. Right. Now, there's another thing that you have to see with this mask is that if you don't have like pure colors, basically like it gets very confused, you know. So you kind of like if you have something that's kind of in between, let's say like just the anti-alias right in between those two colors, it can mess up like the XGen, you know. So what I can try to do is press like Control. You remember that pressing Control and then clicking it smooths things out, right? So we're gonna do like Control and Alt. So he actually is gonna try to crease that even more. So I'm gonna try to do you know, let's do another color. So I'm gonna go like, for example, like pure green. So pure green is gonna be like color. So 0, 255, and 0, right? And then I'm gonna do another filling here. So it looks like this now, right? So you see, there's a little bit of a line in there. So I hope it's not gonna mess up too much. Let's try maybe, let's see, maybe like an alpha. I don't know. This alpha here, I think is, yeah, it has a little fade in there. Yeah, I'm gonna have to figure it out. I mean, like, I think if he has a little bit of a change in there, it's gonna affect the hair. It's gonna create tiny little artifacts in there, but hopefully it's gonna be okay. So if I have something like, sorry,
have you tried hiding half of it?
Hiding half. That's a good point. Let's try that. That's a good idea. So let's undo this. Let's try doing that. Let's see if I got the whole, oops. Oh, there's another guy like there. Okay, so let's do this. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's see if it works. So if I do this, let's see if that's the middle. It still has a little bit of it. Something like that. So let's try to color this green, right? Let's go color green, fill object, just to make sure that this one is working. So red, oops, color red, fill object. Still shows a little bit of a, it's kind of weird the way that ZBrush treats it. There's a little bit of a fade in there, but it should be good enough, you know. It's like if we have the little artifacts, we can clean it up later. But so basically, like, this is the mask you're gonna create, right? Obviously, if it's too perfect, it's gonna look a little weird. So you can, for example, like potentially just do a little, as long as it will go too crazy, right? Because I don't wanna, let's make sure that my alpha as well is completely sharp. And this is like RGBs at 100, right? So let's do like a focal shift that's -100. Yeah, that actually, look at this. With the minus shift, it's actually painting the way I would expect. Basically, like, you know, it's like it's kind of preserving that without like creating a little blend. But I think it's gonna be fine though. So this way here, you're basically like gonna do something like, you can do a little bit of a zigzag. Just to make sure things are not completely perfect, but at the same time, I don't want to be at risk of, you know, it's like invading the opposite side in there. All that work I just did in Maya, you know, it's like if I go too far, it might be a little tricky to, you know. So let's do like the opposite around here a little bit, carve a little bit right here. So just have a little bit more irregular area right there, right? Same for this area here. Maybe too much. Let's get this one back in here, something like that. So now let's export this map. I'm gonna call it hair area. How you call it? Area? It can be area. It's not area. It's the region. Region. Same thing. And then let's just export this one. We're gonna do like a 4K, and then texture from Polypaint. Let's do this here. Here. Oops. Not this. Man, I'm tripping here. Velasquez source images. I had like an old one here that I did as a test. So I'm just gonna do it again. The other one is called regions. This one is called region. So let's do this. And then this can work for everything else, you know, it's like just make sure that you're separating things. Let's say there is a specific area around here that you want those splines included in this area, you want them to follow the specific area. So all the other splines are excluded from that, you know, that's the whole point of using this. So let's say like if you want to paint another, just an example here. So if you have another color that's like a pure blue, something like this, right? And then you're going to do, for example, a pure blue in both sides of the head, so symmetry on. And let's say like you have a bunch of splines around here, and you want to make sure that they are following this direction. They are pointing this way, but you want to make sure that they're not going to interpolate with anything else that's around them. So basically, like you just paint like a solid color like this. So any spline that's inside of this area, you're going to follow it. Follow the direction. The hair is going to follow the direction of the splines, and everything outside is going to be interpolated with whatever is outside. You know, so that's the whole reason we did this. It's because like everything that's over here in the red spot, like any spline is going to follow that direction, and then everything here is going to be following the other direction. So let's see how it works around here, right? So you have like this mass happening right at the facing here. So it shouldn't fix completely, but should help quite a bit. So let's take a look. So where you assign it, you basically go to the guide, not the in guide, right? The in guide is basically like the little square with green box in there. It's the top node. So this guy here. And then you're going to click this use region map, right? And then you're going to click this guy here, the region map. So I'm going to do file, same thing as usual. I can turn off my filter, right? Just make sure everything is pretty much square in there. I'm going to turn off my auto generate. And the most important part here, turn on the Mari UDIM, right? Unless you're using just one single UDIM. But in this case, you're using multiple. So let's pick our map, and you should see the result kind of straight away. I'm going to just pick it right here, region 5, right? I'm picking that one. I just wanted you guys to see that. So look at that, 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Yeah, still like some mess happening here, but for the most part, the root itself, it helped quite a bit. Let's compare this one with where is it? Like a guide right here. So let's just turn this one to 0. So between that, right? 1, 2, 3, that. It's pretty messy, right? It's a lot of stuff happening right there, like that. So let's turn on again. 1. Much cleaner, right? I mean, like there's some orphans in there. A matter of interpolation again. I mean, like some of those areas are going to need more guides in order to capture some of those guys. And if that at the end of the day we are not able to capture all of them, then we can just like go like the, you know, it's like the brute force route and just select those guys here and do that little trick. You know, you can select them and shrink them completely, for example, like to 0, right? Like so they kind of disappear in there. Or you can just like select them, make a clump out of them, and just move to the side. But for the most part, I think like that's basically the approach that I'm going to be using for most of it. And then for certain areas, I'm going to have to actually create some very specific detail. I noticed like in the reference I have, which is like, they're terrible, right? Like I don't have a great like, you know, idea about what's happening. I mean, like something like this, right? I can tell it's wavy because there's some kind of reflections right there. But it's like, I can barely see anything in this, right? But then I have something more like this that's more like a illustration, right? So okay, some waves. Yes,
Chris, have you thought about maybe finding like a movie or something with an actor, like I don't know, Beethoven, or you know, some period piece, and maybe a real person's hair, just to help?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to base like in hairs, but not looking at specifically about anything from that period. Because like, I mean, like I was looking for stuff from a period, like for example, the scholar piece in here. And it was so hard to find anything, you know, it's like even in museums, I found just one based like Jesus actually pointed me to that one. But for the hair, I mean, like this one, I can get kind of a little bit of a clue about it. There's some like little coils in there, you know, but this is kind of like a shorter version. But then later on, he became
I meant like a real human, like say some scientist or somebody with a real photo,
yeah,
where you could just observe their hair, even if it's not actually, you know, him.
No, no. At
Anyway.
the end of the days, that's going to be what's going to happen. You know, it's like I'm going to have to base, just like I did with some other parts of you know, the character, trying to incorporate stuff that I find in real people. But in this case here, I mean, like for now, I'm kind of like sculpting, trying to get the feel of it. In this case here, for example, like he looks like he has like some very specific like 2 curls in there. So it looks like it's very curly, but it's a much shorter hair. But then between this and what happened to him like later in life, which, you know, is like that huge hair in there. This one looks more like, you know, when he had longer hair. It's kind of hard to describe what's going on. So that's why I kind of like trying to rely on like illustrations like this to see how much of the waviness is happening. In the case, like, for example, like the way I have him sculpted right now, the hair in relation to this one looks too long. So I'm going to have to shorten it. And it's too wavy, for example. So I'm going to have to do a little bit less wavy like that. But yeah, definitely like going for a real reference is going to be important. You know, it's like eventually going to have to do that. I'm just trying to get like the character first. And then, for example, like if the waviness is too much in there, this is basically my noise here. So I would go to clump. And then, for example, like for the noise frequency, I can just reduce this, something more like this. And maybe like since it's reduced, I would have to increase maybe like the scale a little bit. So let's try like 12, get a little bit stronger, maybe even 15, something like that. And then combined with the noise itself, right? The noise, I can actually do the same thing. If it's too much, actually only 4 is not too much. I can actually increase this a little bit. Let's see, 6. Yeah, it's a little bit more volume in there. But it's just a matter of like, you know, it's like when you render it, how this is going to look like. Sometimes it looks pretty nice in the viewport, and then you render, it looks too straight. For example, here it looks like it has enough waviness, but then it's kind of like, you know, the only way to see what's going on is when you render it. But let's turn on all those things except for velos here, and then let's do a quick render. The volume is not quite there yet; it's not following the curves just yet because of you know, not enough guides, right? But I want to do a little render just to see how the hair is behaving at this point. In relation to this guy here, I'm definitely going to have to trim it down here, right? All this stuff like those guys going to have to be shorter, and those guys going to have to be shorter, and those guys going to have to pop out kind of like almost as much as I have in there, just like I'm going to need more fillers overall. But yeah, it's going to be a chase, man, like to get the whole thing right. Actually, I forgot the background. Let me render with the background here. Let's see, plane. Where is my background? This one, background plane. Okay, this one. So let's try this. This is the new one right here. Let's just select a little area so it doesn't take too long. Let's try something like this. Let's see, like in the viewport, it didn't look like it was very smooth. It looked like it had plenty of waves. But when you look at the render itself, sometimes it goes very, very smooth, you know. So I have to actually check that. Let's try around here, for example, maybe here where we can see a reflection. So yeah, it got a little bit of wave in there, but I don't know, you know, it's like based on those little references, how much I'm gonna need, right? If it's gonna be, maybe if it's not too many waves, maybe the best way is to actually just, you know, use my splines themselves and just add the waves to the splines in a very controlled manner to just get like pretty much what I need in here, instead of relying too much on this kind of like randomness of the, you know, of the noise. But overall, I think like it's gonna be a matter of like finding out that the character first. So like how many waves are gonna have? Like in that case, when I saw the illustration, it looks like just like 2 or 3, right? So it's not a lot. But at the same time, if it's an illustration, there is the whole possibility of the, you know, the illustrator not being that great at representing that, right? Maybe like it's a simplified version. There's so many things simplified in here. So that's why I more likely would rely on something that's a self-portrait. But in this case, he built everything like, you know, it's like it's pretty fuzzy. So you cannot see, it's just like mostly the volumes, you know. So I'm gonna have to find out like, you know, the best option. In this case here, like I said, I'm definitely gonna need more waves than this. At this point here now, it looks very, very straight, even though I added some noise in there. It's still pretty, you know, straight. So you see, like if I pause this one and then just show you how it looks right here, it looks like it has more waves, right? But that's what I'm saying. I mean, like sometimes people get too caught up with the viewport, and that's why the hair ends up like looking too CG. You know, it's like because you have to crank it more than what you see in the viewport for the most part. So I'm just gonna do, let's say, like the nose hair, no, not nose hair, the main hair. Let's do the noise in here, the main noise. I'm gonna crank this frequency a little bit. I'm gonna get some more frequency. Let's see, not too high, maybe something like this, like 0.1. And then for the clump itself, let's do like a little bit more strength. Something like that. So it looks like it's a lot of waves, right? But then when you render it, it should look much more natural, I think. So let's try this. So let's just save this one for comparison. So yeah, that's gonna look much more natural now, you know? Like there's a little bit more randomness in there. So it's not gonna look like everything is very parallel, you know? So let's try that. And then let's move on to this area here that we did before. Let's see how random that one looks now. So it's that balance, you know, it's like finding, okay, like you're gonna make everything read like it's completely controlled and, you know, it's like in straight hair, or you're gonna do something that's more like, you know, a little bit more random. And I always opted for the more random version of it, you know. So between this little area right there and that one, right, this is basically what we changed just now. See, like this whole area here is more interesting now. You lose some of the, you know, the extra reflection and everything because now things are getting a little bit more random. But at the same time, you can actually compensate that. You know, it's like you can either like reduce the tiny noise and just increase some of the waviness in the clump itself. And we can also play with the specularity. You know, it's like if it's like a drier hair, obviously you're not going to have like, you know, a lot of speck in there. But if you want to crank the spec a little bit, you know, it's always an option. By default, it suggests like the shader from Arnold suggests that the hair is about like 1.55 for the index of refraction. So that's basically the amount of specularity. So if you reduce that to something around like 1.2, 1.3, you get less. If you crank it to something like 1.7, you're going to get more specular. And there's the roughness of the spec as well. You can make like super shiny or something a little bit more natural. I think the more natural one is the default is 0.2. That's how much he uses. But I think in general, I think I can capture that general feel of the hair at some point, like by trimming things here and making sure that it has the general, you know, mushroom shape, right? So basically like trimming this whole area right here by pulling my guides up. Same with those areas here, right? Pull them up, maybe bring some of them to conform to the contours of his face a little bit more towards right here. And keep adding more guides until I have like plenty of the orphan hairs captured, right? Let's see this area right here. I'm curious now. This area around here that we just did the map thing. Let's see how it looks like actually from another angle. So let's try to see from here first. So there's a split in there, but a little bit messy in certain areas. We can correct some of that either manually or by adding more guides. But let's see from the front. Let's see if that's actually behaving in a better way. So let's see. Let's save this guy here first. Save. And then I actually want to talk about some other things with you today as well. The pose. I'm going to be talking about the pose. And then so I'm going to move on from this a little bit, and then we can go back to it. But just to, you know, explore a couple of different things. I mean, this is going to be one of those things that I'm going to be poking around for a while, right? Like hair, especially like if you want absolute control, I'm going to have to actually, you know, sculpt each one of those guides, add a bunch of them, clump some of them together by adding some of them close enough and then clumping to a little chunk, you know. But let's see from another angle here, for example, if I bring this to, let's see, like the front, or maybe like a little bit from the top, something like that. Let's see from the top like this. I want to see that area in there. So let's try that. Let's see if it's too messy. Yes.
the sculpt brush that we are using to reposition the hair, we freeze the
Oh,
portion.
okay. Oh,
So
I thought Maya crashed for a second. Sorry.
no issues.
What is that?
So we can use that sculpt brush to reposition the roots of the hair as well, or does it only work on the latter parts?
No, not the roots. Yeah, I wish, man. It would be so helpful if it could move the roots, you know.
Yes, sir. I have never used like the interactive version of Xgen, but the core Xgen, like you mentioned,
yes,
we are able to like reposition the guides and
yes,
and the hair follows. So what I was thinking was, if it was possible, so we could after if we position the hair and we rebuild the guides, it could have followed it. But I think we have to do the way you did it, like took the center line and then put the guides on the other side.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. One thing that's gonna happen here as well is that, you know, it's like when you get this kind of effect right there, there are a couple of ways that I actually blend things together. Sometimes I add like a little fuzzy pass, which is gonna go all the way around here. So like close to the hairline, I'm gonna have another pass, another description. I can add some of the description right here with a little bit more fuzzy hair, basically like it's slightly thinner than the hair that I have in here. Or I can actually color the scalp a little bit, you know, it's like maybe add a little bit of grayish in there, you know, but I think like once I have the guides in place, more guides, I'm probably going to be able to cover this a little bit more, you know, it's just like I don't have enough at this point to actually make, but the split is actually working. It's just like, it's still a little messy around there, but yeah, I think it's going to go to work fine. So let's talk about this before I go there to the, to talk about the pose stuff. So this pass that I'm talking about is this. Check this out. So if I want to create like a blend, remember that the hair, if you add the hair straight on, it doesn't look very natural. Normally what happens is that you have like your peach fuzz, and then when you get closer to the hairline, it's almost like the peach fur gets longer, right? So you get those fuzzies. And so there are a couple of ways you can approach it. In the past, I show my students how to do, for example, like start with the vellus hair, so basically like the peach fuzz, right? And then just have some guides to actually grow them, so make them like longer. You can do this manually with any of those brushes, with the length brush, right? And grow them around this area. Or you can create like a separate, you know, description. So instead of like growing those guys, you can do maybe like a combination of both, similar to this area right here around the eyebrows. I show my students in the past how to, for example, like grow those little guys here. And by growing, what I'm saying is just like what we did already. You know, it's like you create a sculpt layer, a sculpt modifier, and you just go to the length brush and just like grow them and just like brush them. You know, it's like and comb them towards the same direction as the eyebrows. And then you make them slightly thicker than the peach fuzz. So basically like they become halfway between a peach fuzz and the actual hair. So you can get like a nice coverage, you know, it's like a nice blend in there. But an easier option is to actually create a new description just for that purpose as well. So let's do this right now, just like very quick. It's gonna be quick and dirty, but just to show you guys how I do it. So I'm gonna switch to my topology for symmetry. And then I'm just going to select this guy here, and let's say face. And let's say we're going to go around this. I think a good way to see what we are doing here is this. Check this out. Let's do a main hair. I'm going to remove my all the modifiers. And I'm going to remove the guide as well. I'm going to show the hair. So basically, we know what we're doing now. So this is the hairline right there, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select the faces again, this one. And I'm just gonna draw like with the symmetry around here. So basically I'm gonna go around this entire area of the blend. And you can go a little bit over it. It's good because it blends with the actual hair. So I can go a little bit in overlap like that, just a little bit. All this stuff here underneath is probably gonna be invisible anyway, but this one is you're probably gonna be able to see. But you know, it's like if you're sculpting someone who doesn't have a ton of long hair like this, that's going to be useful, I think. So you can go around the entire thing, create a little blending area. So I'm going to go over here and then around here, fuzzies, right? Just like to add some fuzzies in there. And then go over the hair just slightly. So let's do like a little blending a little bit further right here. And then you add a description in here that's just like a little area to actually help you to blend everything together. So I'm gonna say like create interactive. I'm gonna do like a hair blend, something like that. And then for the amount in here, I'm gonna start with something like, let's try like 6,000. Maybe if it's too little, I can actually increase the density, right? And the length in here is at 0.5. Let's start with 0.5. I might actually, I might use guides in here or not. I can just go straight without guides. So let's apply this. So I have those guys now. And then what I can do like, you know, it's like I can grow them a little bit more. I can do that trick of, let's see, main hair, where is it? Right here. I can use that little trick of sculpting it and setting up, for example, like the length to have like a minimum and maximum to be the same length. So that way I can actually grow them evenly all the way across. Or I can use guides, right? With the guides, actually, you can control them pretty easily. But I'm going to do the quick and dirty job in here because it's not always that you need guides, you know. It's like for certain things like this, sometimes you don't need guides. So I'm going to do, for example, like a length. Let's start with 2 and then maximum length at 2 as well. And let's make sure that we have this guy selected. So let's try to paint this and see what happens. So basically, like, it's too much right now, right? It's too long. So let's try a little bit different than that. Let's see, maybe like 1.5 and 1.5. Minimum and maximum. So let's do this again. So very quickly paint that length, something like that. So now it has like enough length, right, to actually cover stuff. So let me just hide this object in here so we don't have that covering our back in there. And then let me hide the other stuff that's actually just messing up our viewing here. So I'm going to go back to those guys and I'm just going to start sculpting them straight away. So click the hair blend, click the edit. I mean, like, up to you guys if you want to use like guides in here, you know, but in this case here, I'm going to go like the quick and dirty route. So let's do like an object for symmetry. Then you're just going to do this, look. So just blend it like that. And you're going to try to follow that direction. Around here, they're going to start actually going down, right? And then probably around here. Oh, actually, check this out. I have my, let's see, the influence here is the screen. I'm going to switch to volume because I don't want it to go across the model. I want it to stay right here and not interfere with the back of it. So let's go around here. So like just the fuzzies, right? Like just getting them to actually blend a little bit in those areas. They're very straight right now. There's nothing applied to it, right? But you're gonna notice that if you add some magical noise in here, things start to look much nicer. You're just gonna make sure that things are actually blending correctly in there. Look from other angles in here. Make sure that everything is actually blending into the hair. Something like that. I could have gone like a little bit lower as well, you know, but in this case here, it should work in general. So that's the thing, you know, it's like I said, there are so many ways to do the same thing in XGen. You could do this like with masks, you know, it's like and make things more complicated than they are sometimes, you know, it's like we complicate things too much. But sometimes just a little thing like that helps a lot, you know, so it's just to give us a little help. So let's see how many spans we have. I think like we have 64 for those guys. Yeah, so let's try here. Let's see, we have like 64, right? So it should be enough. So just add a modifier. Let's do like a noise. So you get something like this, right? So now we can actually, you know, tweak the noise a little bit, like all those things we mentioned yesterday. Like instead of like respecting this root in here, that's like from root to tip is basically like it's this long gradient. What we can do, we can actually start the noise a little bit earlier, closer to the root, something like this, right? Not like that because that's going to break the root, but it's enough like this, you know, it's like you make a little transition. So it starts to get, you know, a little bit more noisy from the get-go, like that. And then now the whole trick here is to make sure that the color of them is it's a little bit lighter than the rest of the hair, and that the thickness of the hair as well is smaller. You know, it's like so basically you're gonna go to the hair blend, And then at the top in here, make sure that you have shape selected. We'll do a hair tube. And I'm going to make sure that here, when I go to the Arnold, it's actually thick. I think I forgot to do this with the main hair, to tell you the truth. Let's see, main hair. Yep, it's still ribbon, so it's going to render better now. So let's do tube. And then, so hair blend. And then this guy here, I'm going to do, go all the way up here. So if I had 0.10 for the thickness of the hair, I'm going to do this one with probably like 0.07 or 0.06, something like that. I can incorporate a little bit of a curve for the profile of the hair. So let's do this one. It's going to be starting with a little bit smaller at the tip, right? Just make sure that it blends correctly. So the tips look like this. So if I bring it down, it almost disappears. So I can start very, very low like this, very thin, gets a little bit thicker around here. It gets a little bit thicker, or maybe goes all the way to completely disappearing in the middle of the hairs in there. So I'm going to go like super thin like that. And then so here I can actually just go higher and then something like this, So for the color of them, I can actually use the same that I'm using for the peach fuzz at this point, or you can create like, I'm doing stuff like in a lazy way right here. You can create a brand new shader if you want, but let's say if I just use this one just for the sake of it, just to save some time here, let's do select my peach fuzz, so the Velus hair, and then I'm gonna just click that guy. I'm gonna graph this one on the side. I'm gonna duplicate, actually doing everything on the monitor on the side here, but I can show you guys. So this is the Velus hair right here. Oh, Jesus, it just selected it. Velus hair, then graph. So this one, I'm gonna just Control D to duplicate. I'm gonna rename this one hair blend. And then this guy here, I'm gonna assign, and I'm probably gonna get that error, right? I'm gonna just select, let's see if we're gonna see anything red happening there. So I'm gonna go down here, hair blend, right click, assign. Did it assign? No, it didn't. So if it didn't, same deal. Click this guy here, hair physical shader. That's part of the hair that we just created. And then select, press delete, right? And then you can go select the hair blend again, and then assign it. That should be good now. Okay, so we got the hair in there. So let's turn on everything and let's see if, like this thing is so subtle, right? That we can barely see anything. I think he actually needs a little bit more noise, to tell you the truth, like a little bit more, because like I said, if it looks a little bit noisy, it has to look more noisy, because in the render it looks very straight for the most part. It's going to do something like this. And then let's turn on our guides. Actually, not the guides, just the guide, like that. So a little bit around there, right? So probably like it's going pretty much straight to the hair in there. So I think what I'm going to have to do here is to actually brush them in a way they actually blend with the direction in there. So I'm going to just turn off the noise in here. Maybe switch my shading to wireframe with shaded, so I can actually see them. And then let's just click the sculpt in the hair, and I can just do it again, like just a little pass to bring them out. So basically from here, kind of like follow that direction in there, I can switch and turn off my symmetry in there, just make sure that I capture the both sides correctly, but just to get a little bit more of this angle, so it kind of follows the direction of the hair around here. Something like that. It looks more natural like that. Then let's switch to my symmetry off here. And then just get those guys in here to go this way. I can even freeze them to prevent any problems. Let's see, the freeze I'm not going to be able to see with the shader, right, with shaded. So I'm going to freeze those guys, unfreeze those guys. And let's go back to the shaded so you can see what we are doing. And then let's try to grab them again with this one. So just like get some of those over here. Just a little blending in there. And then those other guys, I can just say, okay, I just reverse the invert the frozen effect, right? And now I can get those guys here to blend correctly as well. Something like that. I think it's based on surface right now. That's why it's kind of funky. But yeah, something like that. I mean, like gonna have to spend some more time to actually make it look super pretty, but that's it. Like for blending stuff, it's like what I do for the most part. I just have to refine what I did in there. But yeah, those guys here as well would have to, it's like to brush them so they can actually conform to that. Just have a little bit more direction in general. Just blending with the rest of the direction of the hair. So after you have that, I'm gonna just switch to this one. And let's try to do a little quick render to see how it looks like. If you're gonna see any difference, probably you're gonna see it. But let's see, clump, noise, and then noise. And let's see if we can render anything like that. Let's see if we're gonna be able to see it. Ignore the messy stuff around it for now, but if we cannot see it, we can actually just increase the thickness a little bit. They're going to keep this this curve in there so we can actually see what's happening. Let's try to render here. Should take a little bit to calculate because there's new hair applied to it, so it has to calculate the new object. So let's see if we get this little area right around here. It's so subtle. So yeah, it's like probably would have to do it's like a change the. I'm gonna change the thickness for now, but I think like the color eventually are gonna have to change as well. It's like because going full on like peach fuzz right now, that's almost completely white. It's probably not gonna show much, But yeah, the intention is to create something in between the two of them. Let's do this quickly here. I don't want to spend too much time with that, but. This is just to show like options and stuff, but let's try to do like the hair blend. I already have a different shader, so that's good. So the hair, okay, so I have a hair shader in there. So just do like the melanin in here. I'm gonna increase it again, something a little bit more like that. So it goes black, right? So maybe like around 280, something like that, just to get a little bit darker. See this guy. Let's see if he shows up now. Yeah, now it's showing. So you see like those little guys right there, still very much like straight, right? They could have a little bit more curvature to them, but it's cool because, it's like between having just the hair showing up like out of nowhere in the scalp, if you have like little things to blend like this, it's always better, Let's just save this one as a reference. And then I'm gonna make them a little bit more yellow, right? Like a little bit lighter. Let's do like 150 here. Let's see what happens. See, right now it's got like starting to disappear a little too much. So it's a matter of like finding that sweet spot, like for babies, you're probably gonna need something like this, it's like it's barely visible. So in that case, you can see like they are there, but it's like barely visible, right? So maybe something in between, like maybe like 190 or even 200. Yeah, so I think this is gonna be better. So starting to see them in there. So just like little tricks here and there, it's like this stuff I use, for example, like for the back of the head, I use for this guy right here. Let's see if I can find it, like the African tribes images. In his case, it was kind of funny because he has all those little fuzzies on the back of the head. And at some point I was really, let's see if I have a render of the back, probably not, but I do have some renders of the profile that actually shows that, I think. Let's see if I can find it. There's so many renders of this guy back in the day. I think right here. This one was kind of rough. It was not like fine or anything. But it's like, this was like too much density. So like I was using a lot of density. So it looks very, very fuzzy. I like this area right here in the neck, but all of this stuff was kind of like, it was actually too much. But this area here, we actually worked very well. It's basically the same principle, just like a, kind of like a band, it's like around the whole thing. He has that as well around here. You see like the little fuzzies in there, just to blend those areas. It's like it looks like it's something that's not like starting from, like I said, like out of nowhere. It's like things actually have a little bit of a blend. It's a shame that I have like too much depth of field you cannot see in there. But yeah, everything's kind of blended in there. Yeah, you see like very thin right now. I'm probably gonna have to go a little bit. Either a little bit darker or a little bit thicker, probably a little bit thicker overall. But yeah, you get the gist of it, right? We did quickly here and it works, but it needs love, obviously, as everything else. So let's switch to the posing thing I want to talk about. So characters, I mean, like if you're sculpting something for a portrait, right? Like you cannot talk about portrait with a character that's completely stiff, right? Like it looks like something that's completely stiff. Just like, you know, gonna render like a front portrait like that. You know, it's like the body is stiff, the head is stiff, everything is pretty much like, you know, it's very, very stiff. So we're gonna be talking about posing. So let's turn off a couple of things in here. Let's do like turn off this. I'm gonna do, before I save my file, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click my main hair in here, and I'm gonna go all the way down to hair base, and I'm gonna switch back to 0.2 in here, because the density it affects how you know, how long it takes to render actually. So if I have like a lot of hair like that, I'd rather just like go lower and then save it. So let's do like a saving here and hope that Maya is not gonna crash. It happened to me yesterday. I actually did a lot of work and then I saved it, and Maya crashed right at save. And then when it crashes right at save, if you don't have auto saved on, when you reopen, the first sign that everything went to shit is like everything is green. You know, it's like all the shaders are gone. So it's Maya just assigns a green shader to everything. So when I saw the green, I was like, oh yeah, I'm screwed. But thankfully, you know, the autosave actually saved a couple of minutes before it happened. So I was safe. So that was good. So, you know, that's basically like, if you want to refine that later, that's how I have it in there. You see, it looks very messy. You can actually go in there and just do some tweaking. But let's not worry about it for now. So
excuse me, sorry.
Yes.
Just before we go over to the posing question about hair, I know you mentioned that there was a difference with the end of the hair, so like stubble versus regular hair. We're gonna talk about that at some point later.
That's the thing. That's the thing. We have to do the stubble still. You know, it's like I think
okay, cool.
Tomorrow is gonna be a good day to do it, because the stubble involves two passes. It's basically like it's a paint pass. We're gonna be painting some of the stubble, and also the stubble itself, you know. So yeah, definitely, man. We're gonna be talking about it for sure. Hair stuff goes for a few days, you know. It's like we started yesterday, and it's just like there's so many little things here and there. But I still want to talk about, like, you know, the posing, and hopefully have some time as well tomorrow is still to talk a little bit more about the sculpting part as well. You know, it's like go over general stuff that I think is important for you guys to know. But yeah, thanks for reminding me. We're definitely going to look at that. Yeah, what he was saying.
No problem.
What he was saying
is
basically
the sculpting. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like for example, like he was talking about like the type of hair, right? For example, like the peach fuzz is it's a tiny hair, but it's full grown, right? Like it's completely grown. So we're gonna have like starting with the same with certain thickness, and then getting very thin at the tip, right? It's a fully grown hair. But let's say if you're doing like a stubble, the stubble is basically like that hair was actually shaved. So the tips of them should be more square, right? Like in general. So basically what we would have to do here, it would be something like this, you know, it's like we would play with the curvature, and then it would be basically like a straight kind of hair like this. And then the thickness would be like bigger as well. So at the end, you would have something that's much more square like that. So the tips would look more square. Oh. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about. We do this stubble tomorrow. Yeah. So posing, right? One thing I use here, like for helping me to compose things, is just this little tool here. That's it's a camera thing that I showed you guys before, which is the field chart, right? It's not perfect. This is just like to see the action, right? Like if it's like in a good spot. It's normally used for not for a square shot like this one, right? Like mostly like you know, it's like a nice like little moving. Like let's say like a 1080p kind of thing. But I use this one to help you with the composition, for example. So if I go to a pose like this position right here for the camera, right? I'm going to start looking at where would be a good spot to have this, you know, this diagonal lines placed. So in this case here, for example, I have a square composition, right? So it's kind of tricky sometimes to find the correct spot. You definitely can find like some good diagonals and everything, but I kind of like favor like a 3x4 or something like that, you know, that's easier to actually create like a more vertical kind of portrait. But in here, for example, I can use some of those lines as a reference. I could potentially get like, for example, like use like the eye right here and the corner of the nose, maybe like bringing the base of the nose right against this center line right here. get something kind of center right here, and then the eye. So those things, it's like I can find some other element later on. For example, like I can probably like tweak this shoulder in a way that's a little bit closer to the diagonal in there. Find ways that actually drives your eye. It's like your eyes are basically like you're constantly looking for those like the center line and everything. It's like it's very interesting when you talk about composition. How much you can influence, it's like the direction that someone is going to be looking at your work. There are many techniques people use, it's like they're like using objects with contrasting scales, for example, is one way. The fact that humans have this tendency of trying to look for a horizon every time. I mean, like you start walking, right? Like as a little baby, and you're seeing like a flat horizon base, like you're walking around the house, it's kind of like a flat horizon, right? So sometimes if you're trying to create some feeling of discomfort, for example, or trying to create certain imbalance, right? Like to the composition itself, you can start playing with some diagonals, for example, like forcing the horizon line, for example, to have a slight, tilt. It kind of like forces your body to try to compensate for that. It's like, it's a weird thing. It's kind of like this psychological kind of thing, but it's all like built in, it's like, so people use like contrast of scale, contrast of colors, obviously, silhouette, right? Like diagonals. There's all kinds of things, it's like circles within circles, pyramids. You look at the compositions, for example, like back in the day, like from the Renaissance, those guys are really big fans of that. It's like the Leonardo da Vinci compositions, you're going to find like lots of like pyramids, stars, and things like that. It's like, so those guys, they actually planned the work quite a lot to be able to come up with something that was interesting, sometimes a little bit esoteric in a sense, it's like those guys are into different things, and, it's like beliefs and things like that. Yeah, you're going to find all kinds of stuff. But I mean, like this guy, for this position, if I want to render something like this, I can get like a nice like vertical line hitting him right around the corner of the iris, and then corner of the mouth. And then this one goes right over the iris. This one is the base of the nose. This one gets a little bit of that corner of the nose. So that's a kind of like a good position to have those diagonals, So rendering something like this would make a little bit more pleasant to look at, like in general, because it's just like it's an unconscious thing, but your eye is actually trying to balance things out, it's like look for those imaginary diagonals and things like that. So that would be the first step. I mean, like create something like this. I'm going to just save this camera here around there. So for the next one, I would do a similar thing, it's like, let's do a study here, right? I'm going to go like, okay, the eye, maybe I can move a little bit more towards here. So maybe I can actually find that maybe like the base of the nose, the nostril, the top of the nostril, right at that line. This one again is right against the corner of the mouth, corner of the eye right there. There's a diagonal here that's actually matching the eyebrow, right? So that's another one that's actually in a fairly good positioning here in terms of, the pleasant kind of like composition. But, it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's a creative effort, right? Like this one, for example, I rendered and I posted this one. It doesn't have like, I didn't follow any rules in here. But in general, I mean, like the lips right here are kind of like right in the middle of the image. So he has a little bit of that, kind of unconscious. I just like moved it around. But I could refine this to look like, okay, the eyes are catching that horizontal line. It's like this, the lip is hitting right here. This is actually going across like the bridge of the nose in there. So it looks okay. Because there's a tilt of the head towards the right side, I'm actually compensated for that. I'm not centered. I don't need to be centered, right? So there's lots of little things here and there you can actually think of. There are a couple of books you can buy for composition. I would recommend the ones targeted to photographers. Like there's a lot of interesting ones for photographers. I think, I don't know if I posted, let me just see if I can find it here. Yeah, I have my other photograph books and the photography books in there, but that one that I want is not there. But I can find it tonight and then post the name, and then not the link to Amazon because I'm not sponsored by them, but just the name. There is a very interesting one that talks about all those things, like the composition. Like there's some very interesting shots in there. For example, there is this one that's a little African boy in the background, and then there is a kind of like a bull or a cow in the front, basically like in the foreground. So the guy used like the horns of the cow to frame the little boy. So basically like it's a shot from behind the cow, and then the little boy is right in between the horns. So it's kind of like a picture within a picture, you know. It's like there's this technique you can use, like picture within picture, which is very cool. You can use that, for example, like if we photograph like a door, right? So there's a composition that's basically the body in relation to the opening of the door, and then that door in relation to the contents of the whole photograph, you know. So very interesting stuff. I mean, like it's very worth investigating that. But let's talk about the posing itself. So the posing itself, I used a lot of cheats, right? Because cheats are good as long as they're good cheats. So for example, if I'm posing this guy here in Maya, in ZBrush, so you see, like I did this whole work to make sure that the face was symmetrical, so I could do a lot of the work in here. And I still want the face to be fairly symmetrical, right? So let's say like, if you want to pose this guy now, imagine the amount of work you would have to go through to just like move everything. So eyeballs would have to be rotated and everything, right? Like everything that you did for the head at this point would be rotated. So what I do, I normally cheat the whole thing and I do the opposite. So I pretend that the hair is rotated by rotating the body. So I just do this. Obviously, they're going to have to do the same thing for this area here, right? They're going to have to be extracted. This extraction would have to be, going to have to follow him. But in this case here, I'm not going to care too much because this is just an extraction of his body. I'm probably going to do it again. So I'm going to just consider him as my main target right now. And I normally do this. So we just go to the mark lasso here. I'm going to just do a lasso. Let's see if it's symmetrical. Yes. And then let's do it like from the profile so I can capture the color around here. And then I'm going to just click a bunch of times, just like going to go a little bit further more, a little bit higher right here. I'm going to blend it, something like that. And then you can reverse the mask. Press W, or, in this case here would be R, right, for rotate. Then you can just turn off your symmetry, press X. Then you press Alt and click this little guy here. So it's going to go center. And then click this little guy here to actually, reset the rotation as well. So now I can actually move this up, press Alt again and click one of those little edges here, those triangles around. You can move right around there. That's like basically like the axis right there. Obviously, like your vertebrae would be a little bit more right here, right? But I'm going to kind of keep it a little bit more in the middle right here. And then let's see if it's centered enough. You can move a little bit to the side. It's not completely centered. So something like this. And then let's say like if the head, you want it to be kind of tilted to the side, right? Instead of like tilting the head, I would actually tilt the body itself. So when I make this whole horizon like this, looks like the head is tilted, right? So basically I'm going to be cheating that way. In the case of that specific portrait of him, he's looking towards the right side, right? So I'm going to have to do a rotation. So basically it's an interesting one because he's rotating his body as well. So it's kind of like, it's an interesting one because it's like a lot of it's being rotated. But at the same time, what I can do to make it more interesting, maybe like lower one of the shoulders like that and maybe exaggerate a little bit more the impression that he's looking that way by doing something like this. Let's turn on my geometry here, the perspective. So at this point here, it's like the head is going a little bit further than the body itself. So I kind of like keeping the body a little bit more like this. So the face is rotating a little bit more. So very subtle rotation. And then I can actually incorporate a little bit of that tilt. So once I have something adjusted like this, it's going to look like he's, it's like looking a little bit more like that. So I mean, like if you can really exaggerate the way you want to do it, right? But in this case, you're going to try to keep things simple for now. And then, so basically, like you can play with this, and understand the concept, right? Like, I mean, like if you're rotating the body, that means that the camera is going to have to be rotated to compensate for that. If you want to have a little tilt in the head, same like if you want to do a tilt like forward, for example, right? You do something like this, you're going to have to compensate for it. So now he's looking up, right? But in fact, the head is completely symmetrical, right? Like you still can work symmetrically everywhere, but you're just like adding some kind of like trick in there, right? So actually I'm gonna do this a little bit because I don't like this super straight pose. I'm gonna do a little bit of that. It always look a little bit better, more relaxed. But at the same time, that color that they used back in the day, like those in this specific era here, it's meant for them to look like they're very stoic, like, you know, it's like the neck is very straight. It's supposed to not be very comfortable. Based on the stuff I was reading about it, you know, it's like that those pieces are not supposed to be comfortable. They're fairly uncomfortable, actually. But you see, like, so now I just did this little pose. I'm probably going to tweak it later. But let's say this is the pose you want to go for. So what I would do, I would just export this one. Obviously, later on, I'm going to have to do all the displacements using this one. Another thing you can do, you can actually bring this one as a layer, right? So you don't destroy your neutral pose. And then you can actually keep working on the model itself and just like dial in the layer to actually go back to this one. But again, I don't trust ZBrush layers. I mean, like, it's a little bit too buggy, but it's an option, you know. Either a layer, or you can just like save this one, export this OBJ like this, and then export the neutral one, and then alternate between them using a morph target. You know, it's like import one, switch, and then import the other one, and you can basically like switch between them. Let's do export OBJ. It's going to be Velasquez post, like that. And then here is going to be the same deal. I mean, like, if we still have doubt how this works with the whole hair thing, right? Like, we were concerned about, like, is the hair is going to follow, blah, blah. Yeah, it's going to follow. And especially now, right? Because we are keeping the head locked. So what's going to change is that we're going to have some intersections around here now because we didn't pose the this piece. So let's do the import. So basically, this is what you're going to have to do every time you do any changes in ZBrush, right? Go to export select, import selection. So import OBJ. So import data. Let's go to ZBrush OBJ and then post. So import that one. Now he has intersection in there. Let's make sure we select him first. See if I'm rendering anything in the background. No. And then outliner, and just going to select the previous head, this one. So with control, right? Select the latest one we just brought, this guy here. And then the main head, which is this one here with control. And then deform, blend shape. Click the blend. Going to blend to 1. Done. And then I'm going to switch to my tab in here. I'm going to just delete the history. Always remember, there's a difference between delete by type history, which is the one I'm going to be using, and delete all by type history. So this one has the potential to destroy your XGen. So don't use that one ever, right? Use delete by type because this one just deletes the history of the object that's selected. So you're just going to delete this one. And then at this point, I can just go to the latest one here with the one we just brought in and just delete it. I don't even need all those poly groups or anything. So now we have the pose in there. So basically, like, the rotation is like this, right? So now it's a little bit more natural looking, right? It's a little bit more, if you look from the top, I think it's going to be easier to see like that, right? Now, the difference in here is that now we have, like, still the head is very, very straight, right? So you have a little bit of a tilt in there. But let's say if you want to compensate for that to make sure that the camera reads a little bit more interesting, we could cheat that as well by going to the camera tools and just using the roll tool. So this one, you can actually tilt side to side. So sometimes I do that, you know, it's like just a little bit of a tilt. Imagine, like, if you're photographing someone with your camera without a tripod or anything, right? You're probably going to have, like, things slightly out of, you know, not completely centered. So something like this would be looking a little bit more natural, right? So I would, you know, just do that and then view, select camera, and then save that one. Let's look at this guy, for example, from here. You see, like, now it looks like there's a slight rotation to the face in relation to the body here. I still have to compensate that some more volume. That's going to come from the clothes and everything, especially if I'm going to go for something like this, which probably not, you know. It's like if you do something too close to something that already existed, it kind of misses the point, I think, you know, and then creates this whole thing about for people to compare like 1-to-1, which is kind of like not the point, you know. You're creating a version of the guy. So yeah. So this is one way to do the posing, and the other way I can show you very quickly. It's having a little bit of a little rig in Maya. The way you rig things in Maya, I can show you very quickly. You know, out of curiosity, you might need this at some point. So basically, just gonna hide those things. you're gonna go to your animation, actually rigging. They change things a little bit. They keep doing that. So for the skeleton, so you're gonna create some joints in here, right? So we can do, for example, like you can start like here, just click and then drag. Let's start like create like simple one like that. Let's just do this. Let's just turn this shading X-ray joints so you can see it right there. Now, if you want to keep creating more, you can just like click the little, the last one, right? You started with this one. The last one created was this little ball. Click again, like the skeleton, click on top of it, and then press shift so you can go like in a straight line. And then you can add like as many, joints for the neck as you'll need. But for the head, I mean, like you're probably going to need like much, like not a lot of them. You're not going to be bending the head in two, right? So let's start with something very simple like this. And let's see from the side. Actually, let's do to the profile. It looks fairly in an okay position, but I mean, like I could move this whole thing here more towards the back and then bring this one here, more here, bring that one, kind of like just selecting each one of them and just moving them a little bit. Got that ones. Joints always have priority. So if you click on them on top of a body like this, it's going to select the joints, not the body. So if I have something like this, now it's kind of like right in the middle, right? And then how you rig this thing. So easy peasy. I'm not going to be adding any controls in here because we need a very basic rig just like to twist things around, right? One thing that's good to do is to create like some support joints in here. So for example, if I click this base in here, or, I don't know, the base, maybe this one here, click this one, I can create like a clavicle, for example, maybe like in two pieces like this. And then if I want to create a little bit of support here for the sides of the neck, you can add a little, almost like a little rib cage for the neck in there, if you will. Right? It's kind of weird, but it works because it kind of like forces to, to use more influence in that area right there. And then for the face itself, you can create something like this. So let's get this joint right here. And let's do like a jaw, something like that. And then towards here, can even do like something weird, like bring this one all the way here. Just make sure that everything is locked in here. Otherwise, Maya tries to figure it out, So this one sometimes helps. Sometimes it's a little bit more work for you because you're going to have to, to pay attention to more joints and stuff like that. But, in general, just something to lock things in place. Now, if you have those guys right here, right? We want to mirror it. So the way to mirror, you just select like just this little dot right here, not the entire thing, just this little guy. And you can go to your skeleton and just say mirror joints. Make sure you have, I think it's like Y and Z, no, Y and X. I think it's Y and X. Then apply. No, actually it's not. I was wrong. So let's try X and Z maybe. Nope. Last one obviously was the first impression. So this one, so Y and Z. So click this one, apply, and click this one and apply as well. So now we have mirrored, right? So like easy peasy. So now we can actually do the rigging. So to do the rigging, you just select the base of it. So the beginning of the whole system, right? The root of it, the root of all evil. And then you're going to click shift to select the body itself. And then you can go to skin and bind the skin. Let's see, like I'm going to keep everything default in here. So now everything I did the binding here, but we don't have any weight maps painted. So that means that a lot of stuff is going to slide around, So it's not going to be a perfect, thing at all. So if I try to rotate this right now, the influence is going to be kind of wacky, I think. So let's see if we do something like this. It's fairly okay, actually, fairly okay. But you see, like some stuff is breaking a lot in there. So a quick fix for this kind of stuff, for this type of like super weird deformation, you have to actually go to your skin. And then there is this, where is a paint weights, paint skin weights, this guy here, right? So I'm going to go to this one. And then now you can look at, for example, like if you click any of those joints in here. Let's see. Oh, this is the interface here I was missing. Let's see if I can look for the exchange rods. That's so weird. I used to be able to see the colors in there. Let's see if it's showing somehow. Paint skin weights. Let's try that. Okay, now it's showing. So Yeah, so basically like each one of those little joints is going to generate an influence in there, right? So if you right click in each one of them, for example, like this guy here, and see like select influence, so that shows like what's being influenced right there. So you can go with the brush and you can just add like opacity, like more of that. So for example, I can grow like with the B and then drag just to change things and just paint a little bit stronger right there, right? So we can do the same thing, right click this little guy right here, select the influence, paint a little stronger right there as well. So you can actually do some refinements like this, you know, it's like this one here, let's see, this influence, I can make stronger around this whole bottom part here, for example, to lock it in place. But the thing is, like, once you have this all in place, let's see, like this is the neck, for example, I can just like add a little bend like that so that it's stronger as well. It can go all the way across. And then for the next one, maybe I went too thick in there, but same deal, you know, it's like you're going to be doing this kind of like just to make sure that everything conforms to those specific areas. So after you have that, if you try to deform now, it's going to be very weird because you don't have a nice transition between those influences. So what I do normally, I just switch to smoothing here, and then you click this one and you just say flood. So you have like a smooth selected, just do like a flood. Gonna do a few times like that, like a bunch of times. So you see like it's spreading that area now. Gonna do the same thing, select that one, gonna flood it, gonna smooth it out. So this actually blends between all those areas. I did a very poor job painting things here. The transition is gonna look nicer now, it's gonna be softer, but not perfect because you see I'm doing everything super fast right here. But if you do this carefully, you can get some very, very clean results. You know, this is just like a quick tutorial for you guys to show that you can actually do a quick rig in here and get stuff to work. You know, it's like, so for example, this one, you know, see like there's some weird deformations happening there. So again, like you can go back to your skin and then paint skin weights, and you can just select that little guy right there. See like and paint like an actual good influence right here. Do like a replace one. So let's paint like right across this whole area. Something like that. Oops, a little bit higher. Something like that. And then you can switch to smooth and then just like do flood a bunch of times. Like that. Just make sure that, you know, it's like if you're doing something like that, you see it's affecting like ear right there, right? And make sure that those guys here are the ones hooked to the ear. So this little guy here maybe can hold the whole ear part, right? So it's like, it's a matter of like really getting into it and then studying this, but it's not like rocket science at all, you know. It's like, it's just like simple. It's a simple, quick rig. So like that, then it's like you have to pick which one is going to be influencing what areas. I'm going to smooth this as well, like that. And then let's switch here. Let's see how this behaves. Probably, I don't know if I made it worse. A little bit better, right? A little better. So yeah, breaking around there, right? But this is another option. The cool thing about this is that once you have it rigged in here, then you can play with animation, right? Something that you probably like if you're just doing like a quick transpose, you're not going to be able to. But this way here can actually, you know, like play with different things, you know, it's like help with your pose. If you have like all the weights like pretty much smooth between them, I normally go through the whole list. So basically like I click the skin paint weight maps. I click the first one in there, and I'm gonna click like smooth and then flood a bunch of times like this, like 5-6 times. Then I press down, go to the next joint, same thing, down, flood, press like 5-6 times, 7 times. Each one of them, you know, it's like at the end of the day, if you have like the paints in the correct spots, just by doing this, all the transitions become much more soft, you know, like you're not gonna get like some crunchy polygons. So basically, like that's basically what I had to do in there. Let's see if some of the problems we had in here kind of like got solved. You know, it's like at least like the transitions being softer, right? So see, it's softer overall. Same for this guy here. This one is influencing a lot of the chest part in there. So yeah, as long as you do things like carefully, all this stuff works much, much better than what I'm showing you guys. Just to show like, you know, possibilities. This area here would have to actually hook up, either like put an additional joint to hold the trapezius, or just like paint the skin area to conform to this little joint in here, you know, so I can hold it in place. But yeah, just like things you guys can play with. And then for the eyes, I mean, like if you wanted to hook the whole thing up, you could just like get the eyes themselves like that. And you can do, for example, like a constraint, right? Like you can do a point constraint into the center of the head in here, or you can actually create like a, if this is the group right here, those two, basically like put inside of the hierarchy. I don't think it's recommended, but let's say if I have this one selected, let's see if that would work. Constraint right here. So I'm just gonna click that center in there. I'm gonna click this group. Just gonna say, let's see if it works. Parent, and then it's gonna be all translation and rotation. Let's see if it works like that or not. And then, yeah, it works. Okay, so same thing, click this one here in the middle, click the other eye, this one, constraint, parent, and now we can actually follow the whole thing, right? Eyes following everything. Pretty bad, like, it's like area maps, like weight maps painted in here. You can see there's a lot going on in there. But if you do a clean job, it's like just make sure you paint just the areas that you need. You end up like getting some very good results, So yeah, just covering a little bit of that. Like also we have to cover in the next 2 days is a little bit of the post-processing part. It's like I used a plugin called, let's do this today actually, because tomorrow is going to be, the next day is going to be a little bit crunchy, I think, but let's delete this whole thing here. Delete. And then, so that's gone. Our weight maps, I think, are gone. Let's delete this one. And then let's just make sure that now that we brought the posed head from ZBrush, that everything is working. So eyebrows in place. Everything should be in place because we didn't move the head at all, right? So it should be a good way to go right there. But we got that slight little rotation in the body there, which is really good. All right, so I'm gonna save this one, but I'm not sure if I did something, I went too crazy in there, and maybe I did something I shouldn't save right now, but I'm gonna save just in case. And let's switch back here to my Photoshop. So I know it's 10 already, but let's try to cover this a little fast, and then I can go back to it, so I can give you more details about it. But if you remember from what we did the other day, like when I render anything inside of Maya from Arnold, what I do here, first I have my P3 D60 aces right here, which matches right there, right? And then when I'm exporting those things from Maya to Photoshop, I'm actually clicking Save Final Images in here. And then under the image options, I'm actually switching this one to disabled. And then the second spot here, I'm actually switched to P3 D60. Not to be confused with those guys here, limited, right? It's just the P3 D60 aces. And then apply gamma and exposure I'm not doing because I don't want to, I'm not doing anything with those slides, so I don't need that. And then from this point on here, I can just like go to File, Save Image, and just like give any name here, but I have to express the extension, otherwise it gets confused, it doesn't know what extension you need. So put any name in there and then just .exr, right? We need to export EXR to make sure that things are coming through like in 32 bits, right? So when I bring them in here, let's bring like any of those guys here so you can see. Those are some of the renders I did today, actually. I'm gonna bring some of them in here so you can see. So let's pretend you exported those things. So the original ones are this ones right here. So A, B, C, and D, they're all EXRs. They're gonna look very washed out. Right, look washed out. But we did that little, a script in Photoshop that I taught you guys how to do. It basically corrects this into the space that we need, right? So I'm gonna click this one. It's gonna basically go through those steps you went through. You can find in the videos like the little tutorial I did. And then just like correct that to look exactly or really, really close. Like it's almost an exact copy of what you see in the viewport in Arnold. So basically like this. So now this whole script that we created is going to convert things from 32 to 16 bits, right? I do this because the plugin that I use, it uses 16 bits. It doesn't accept 32 at this point. So the plugin I use is called Alien Skin, and it's called Exposure. If you look online, I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. I'm talking about the stuff that I use, but I'm not. So alien skin. Oh, he's saying he's not because he is. I get it. Okay, so exposure. So now it's actually version 6, X6. So I only have like version X4, which tells you that I'm not sponsored by them, right? Because otherwise I would have the latest. So it's a very cool set of plugins. I think it's better now. I didn't test it like this latest version, but it works like this. They probably have more presets as well now. So you enter this plugin, and you're going to be granted with a bunch of, let's see, let's go back here. So we're going to be granted with a lot of things here, like in this interface. And they have tons of presets. The whole reason I got it is because of the amount of presets. They have black and white presets. They have color presets in here. You can create your own presets, as you can tell, African man, albino, anthropus. And then they have their own presets. So for example, like you go through like cinema in here. So you can keep going here. This is kind of like I would say like an Instagram filters on steroids. They have like all kinds of very cool presets, you know, very easy to get some interesting results. I like a lot like the old school ones, like the vintage stuff. So they have this vintage, let's see, is it a vintage? No, I think it's like the sepia ones. This one adds a lot of noise and stuff. But the sepia ones, let's see if they have another name for it. It's probably like in the black and white version here. Let's see. Polaroid vintage. Okay, Polaroid vintage. So those ones here are cool, man. I like those ones, you know, it's like with those borders and everything. Very cool presets. But check this out. Like if you want to create your own presets, you have access if you have familiarity with Lightroom. It's very similar, you know. It's not as precise. Sometimes the controls jump a little bit, but it's mostly like, you know, exposure. You have exposure in there, control. You have your contrast, highlights, whites, like reduce or increase the highlights, right? And then you have the fun stuff when you get down here, which is basically like playing which one of the channels, you know, it's like see the lips right there, like playing with each one of the different channels. And then I have some very fun stuff here. For example, like a light effect, right? So the light effect is really cool. So you click this guy here, and you can click this little move, and you can move it around like that. So you can get like a more opacity as well, so you can see the flare. Sometimes I use this flare here, which is really cool. It's one of my favorite ones, just like much smaller, something like this. And then you can actually do like a rotation like that and put on the side, the same side that the light is coming from, like a little bit more zoom, something like that. And you can get like some interesting effects, you know. It's like I use this guy as well for the African guy for this sequence right here. This whole sequence here is using that. So if you use like a, you know, it's like, for example, put in the background like that, it's just like it has enough to see like the little bit of the lens flare, the blue tint right here. So that's the same lens flare. If you put in the correct spot, you know, you can get some very interesting effects. In this case here, I mean, it doesn't have a lot going on, but just to show you that there's that. Borders, you have a bunch of different borders in here. You have like collection of grunge stuff like that, like all old stuff. They have like plain ones, Polaroid, some very cool ones, the vintage stuff, like, you know, destroyed. And then if you pick one of those, for example, you can play with the zoom. So get like a little bit, you can actually flip things, spin it around, right? Like change like, you know, the black and white and the reverse of it. The opacity, you can actually bring it down or up. And then you have like lots of things, for example, like, let's see, this is the border, right? So border, and then you have the overlay itself, the texture right here. So the texture, you have like dust, you can add like dust like that, but you have some very cool ones like the paper stuff, like in scratches. So like the scratches are very cool, like for that type of effect, you know, it's like something like this one is pretty hardcore right there. And then the cool ones that I used, another effect is this one here. There's one that's called let's see, IR. So this one here, if you do like a halation opacity, you crank it, you can get this glow effect, right? But just make sure that you have the color contrast. Otherwise it gets like very, very kind of reddish. So this one is just to add this, you know, like this is the spread of it, how much glow you want to make things more dreamy, right? So always better like if you don't use everything like at 100%, you kind of, you know. And then you can switch like to create like a fake depth of field as well, just like Photoshop, right? So everything inside of the software can change the aspect ratio right here, something like that. Let's do like the focus around the fascia here, and then I'm gonna bring this all the way out. And then let's just play with this values in here. So like the amount, right? Like really blurring everything around him right now. So just the faces, and like there's the zooming here as well. That's the creaminess of it, like the depth of field, right? It's changing right there. You can see around here. So like very, very cool. It's like and another thing that I do a lot is like to get the look of the skin to look more realistic overall. Not in this case because he's gonna be more like it's like not quite like a painting, but a little bit warmer tones, right? But I like to use, for example, this one here. So you have like the split toning. You can have like the black to be a little bit more like on the blue side of things. So you can actually tint it a little bit more blue. You can make this actually, instead of blue, more towards like the cyan, something like that. So it gets cooler, but without getting too cool, right? Too cool for school. So basically this one here, you can play with the strength. So you get a little bit more blue, a little bit less. And then this is one of the controls, but you have another one in here, which is the color filter. So you have like density stuff. So you can actually say, for example, like you can pick a color. So density here, I can say it, it's like maybe like the bluish, kind of like a cyan again. And then I can just say, okay, it's going to be more density or less density, a little bit more blue or a little less blue, right? So I can put like something a little bit like that. And here I also have this one you can play with the warmth and more cool as well. So you can actually play with both, either use just the bottom one or a combination of both, So you can get some interesting effects like, and then if you press spacebar, you can see the before and after. Let's see if I can maximize this like that. Yeah, so you see like the before and after, the whole thing that I did. So it's cool like to get some quick effects, It's like they look very cool. The way that it works is basically like this. Once you apply it in here, he assigns as a separate layer. So like you can see the before and after in there, right? And then this is just a few of the controls, It's like you have control for, if you want to do another version of this, you can just go back, click this one, like the original one, go back in their exposure. Oh, sorry, I clicked the shortcut. My mistake. Let's go back to this one here, alien skin. And then the latest thing you just did should be saved automatically. So when you go back, it's basically you're back to that same effect right there. So you can save it, for example. You can just click this little preset in here, and you can give a name, for example. Instead of like saving inside of this one, I can just say new category. I can just say Velasquez. So everything here is going to be inside of that. And I can see like, put like task number 1, something like that. And those are the options I can save, like the tone curve, everything. So if I click that one now, if I go to up here, you're going to see there's presets user, right? So now I should see Velasquez right there. And that's the task 1 right there. So basically, like if I switch here, this is like the Sammy preset that I was using, like for the latest model that I did. There's like back in the day for Rick Baker, there's some different ones here. All of that I saved as well. Like lots of noise. There's this one that's kind of like more like a, an old photograph, right? A little frame, the greenish. So all the stuff like, for each one of my models, I do a bunch of those just to test. And sometimes it works better for a model than the other one, But it's a very powerful little system. Like I said, you're not going to have precision in terms of color correction like you have with Photoshop or Lightroom. But it's good enough, It's like you can do a lot of stuff with it. And just the special effects themselves, it's very useful, man. I mean, like you can get a lot of very cool effects, The clarity as well. I mean, like I don't like to use the clarity too much because it gets too crunchy, right? Like that. But maybe a little bit of clarity is good. And then you have also the sharpness. So you can actually add sharpness, add some radio in here. So you get like very, very strong. And this is the kind of stuff I recommend not doing too much with humans like that, because it tends to look like a little posterized a little bit, and the skin, instead of having that natural glow that comes from the skin when you render it, right, or when you take a picture of the skin, you start seeing everything a little bit more like a rock. It's like everything kind of loses the softness if you use too much sharpness. So try to be mindful of sharpness, when you're doing your post-processing in there. This plugin here, I think it costs like $100 something bucks. But in my case, it was totally worth it, Let's see how much they charge for this these days. Let's see, buy 129. And then they have a bundle for $149. I would not buy the bundle, maybe just this one. But an option, you know, it's like for the amount of presets you get and the amount of like flexibility to special effects, I think it's a great one, you know. And then once you have this applied in here, I can just switch to this guy here and just say the same thing, you know. It's like apply to this one the same effect, you know. Same thing here. Let's see, filter exposure. Obviously, I'm just focusing around that area, so probably like the depth of field is not going to be that great, right? And then also the lighting coming always from the same spots is not going to be great. But just to get like a quick concepts, you know, it's like how the whole thing looks like, you know, it's kind of cool to see like that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I had for you guys today, man. I'm trying to rush and trying to, you know, shove as much information as I can on you guys, you know, because it's important at least like to expose you guys, because since it's recorded, it might trick your, you know, take your curiosity to explore some of those tools, you know. It's like, so that's why as much as I can put in there, you know, I'm going to try to do in the next 2 days. And yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Have a good night, man.
Have a good night.
You too.
Good night.
Good night.